Hey guys, welcome to the Friendship Ended with Hajad, Now Specs is My Best Friend podcast, featuring Specs and not Hajad.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint everybody, but we'll, uh, we'll have
Uh,
fun.
yeah, he just has massive exams right now. That'll probably be a topic later when we talk about the Dedens and their series in PUPL. Um, and he was like, we can either not get this out until Friday, or you can just do a cast with someone else. And I went, Friday, you can sit this one out. So that's kind of how it be. Fortunately, it wasn't a huge week. There was more PPL, um, but nothing like super crazy happened in Open. And like there's a couple PU things. Snake draft signups are up, which some people should shoot for, and we did the viability rankings, but that's about it. And I don't think there's a ton to say about the VR yet. Because like it's enough of the meta's been old enough to actually do a VR, but it's not young enough for I think to really conclusively start hitting major changes like oh this just shouldn't have happened. So like the VR is there. That's really about all I have.
Yeah, I think it's pretty representative of the meta, like Galarian, Rapidash, or Gorse, uh, Mr. Rhyme, Fisk, S. You know,
I would have put throw an S, but I don't think
yeah,
it's
I
I
think
don't
I
think
would
it's a
too.
huge deal. I mean, yeah, stuff's there. The lower ranks probably suck. What are you gonna do? We're gonna have that massive post DLC tier shift in like a month and a half at this point. So it's only gonna last so long, but it's there. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah, it helps for building, so good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So PUPL. Um, this is I guess a little bit gonna be our side because we got two Meowsticks doing the cast. But we're gonna start with Meowsticks versus Carcoals, which was just a very sad series that we probably should not have lost in the way that we lost, and it was very depressing. Uh, but we'll go through that.
Yeah,
Um, in the past, we've been splitting it up SS then SM than the old gens and stuff, like just going down in order. But I think for the purposes of playoffs, I'd rather go through chronologically. I don't actually know what order you pulled up the replays in, but I think it better sells like the story of playoffs and how they're going and how people are like actively spectating this stuff.
yeah. I'll just go in the order you're going in. So
Yeah. So the first game I have is Bugsnator versus Felburn.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened much earlier than everything else. All the other games were like late Saturday or Sunday, but Bugsnator played no, I'm sorry. He played Saturday and like everyone else played Sunday. So this one was possibly the least interesting game that happened. It was like a fun a fun little bit of back and forth. I thought it was like worth watching, but I don't know that I have a ton of commentary to give. Outside of Felburn brought a workup Flareon with Flare Blitz and Scorching Sands, and that was pretty cool. Whereas most of Bugsnator's stuff was just pretty standard. Had a sub bulk up throw that did a lot of work in this matchup, which we were pretty reliant on, and ended up pulling out like a pretty convincing win.
Yeah, I thought it just showed how Thoreau can really put on pressure against every team. I mean, Sully's so pressured to go into on Pheasant every time, but you can never hard end. So it's just this awkward, like, I have Apple in, and like it's decent, but it's gonna bulk up past me, and Scarf Gorgeist is just setup bait. So
Mm.
yeah,
And
I thought it was good.
don't get me wrong, this is definitely like a notably weak to throw team. It's weaker
Mm-hmm.
than I would want most of my teams to be versus throw. When your resists are like eject pack Appleton and Scarf Gorgai, that's a problem. Especially when it really has no issues with Stunfisk or Klingling. But still, yeah, like this is throw good. Bugsy played this well.
Yeah, and two Flareons is cool. I want to see that Mon do some stuff. So
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
So the next game that happened, yeah, this was the other Saturday game. It was General Annoyance versus Brufasa. Um, this was just not a great played game from Brufasa, which he admitted as much right after. GA pretty much kept a lot of momentum up the whole time, and we never did a ton of breaking. The only reason things came kind of close is just GA like almost choked his ass off. Like really, GA has been very good this PPL. Mid game here, he almost choked his ass off so goddamn hard. Um, I don't know if you
Yeah.
have more to add to that.
Not much more. I mean, I was happy to see him pull at the Whiskash because I don't know if you got that from me, but I'm big on Whiskash, and Tech is like a really cool set. Then you have a bunch of stuff that annoys Bello, like Monferno, Muck, uh,
Mm.
all that. Yeah, I wasn't happy with how Grafasa played, but I don't know. I don't want to say the matchup was bad. It's just there was a lot that pressured Grafasa's team that GA brought, and that's just kind of how DPP goes sometimes. You know,
Yeah,
no team
yeah,
preview, it can really screw you.
yeah. And like I said, the only reason it came close is because GA had three ground weaknesses, two somewhat frail mons, and a Tangela versus our Scarf Gabite, and then sacked the Tangela for no reason, and then went Whiskash on the Gabite and tried to Dragon Dance on it and just got 2 KO'd. And like Gabite almost did some stuff. So like if we didn't have Electabuzz in the back, if we had something that could beat Barugly, this could have been just a straight up win for Brufasa. Um,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't have expected, based on Brufasa's first 5 Mons, to not have like, something random and frail that loses to Barugly. So that's like,
yeah,
if I was GI, I still would have definitely expected Barugly to win.
yeah. I do want to say though, as much as like I think, well, I think the big thing at the end was that we could have gone Electabuzz hard uh, on the Perugly and attempt static. So
Yeah,
that way, we EQ, we still don't kill it, but there's the para chance.
yeah, it would have been a small chance, but it would have been possible.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
possible is the big thing. Sometimes games just come down to that.
yeah.
So
Give me 1 sec but before Termy versus Starmaster, I actually gotta pause the cast for a sec. I'll edit this out. Just hang on. Okay, so jumping back into talking about games and stuff, Termy versus Starmaster. This is where we get to Sunday. It's 1-1 so far. Teams are even. We're going to the brand new day, and it starts out bad. There's really no other way to describe this game other than Termy almost certainly straight up won if he hit one head smash and then just missed head smash and died, and then immediately lost due to missing head smash. Um,
yeah, like the the only thing I think she could have done is that like keeping Dusk to be able to eat +2 Rapidash, but we don't know that it's SD necessarily, or that Rapidash is even going to be that hard to revenge kill otherwise. Like,
Yeah, you're pretty fine. It doesn't
yeah,
immediately force anything out super hard. You've Stunfisk for mid grounds. The only like really annoyed mon is Morpeko. But Scarf Dreadnought is a pretty decent revenge killer. All it needs is very slight chip to be able to hit liquidation. It just so happened here that like it came in with just rocks up, no spikes, which Termy had. Dusk is already dead. You gotta hit a head smash. But like the flip side of that is it was Star's only real threat here. Otherwise, there's like nothing Star really has to do to win here. I don't know how to. Yeah, like Star just doesn't really have a threatening team outside of the Rapidash. So as long as the Rapidash dies, there's just not much to do. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I don't really see how Star would have won this in any other in any way if a head smash was hit. Which yeah, it kind of it kind of blows, and there's not much to do about that. I think we had good prep, a pretty reasonable matchup. I like Termi's team, and sometimes you just automatically die on an 80% move. So not the most fun game we've ever had. We're down 1-2. Um, but we go into Trix versus Raichi in Sun and Moon, pretty shortly after, like pretty soon after. And this is another game I don't have much to say about, just because Trix played this really bad. I gotta be honest. This was
Yeah.
this was a really poorly played game. They also had a CB Regirock. I don't know why. It's not good. But Raichi, we just loaded up. This was an offense team that I just wholesale ripped off from something Tasker brought in Snake. Um, like we just tossed him that, and he just kind of hit buttons and won, and that was the game.
Yeah, we got basically almost every turn correctly, which is what you do when you have somebody like Raichi playing for you. You know, you're relying on them clicking the better buttons, and I think that's what happened. Um,
Yeah, we messed up one pursuit turn that just did not really hurt us that bad at all. I think the biggest thing to watch, like Trix just kind of didn't switch at all this game, and sometimes it called out Raichi being aggressive, but for the most part, it just had things dying. Like,
yeah, it's just where was it even getting him? Like calling out. I think that's the big thing. Like there were some plays made, but there was no progress made. We had so much. Like it's already turned 20. We've killed 3 Mons. We have 6. It's insane. And he was clearly playing for the Dodrio at the end, but there wasn't enough done previously to really make it matter.
yeah, pretty much. The win con at the end was like B Rock, Polish Tartera, and dodge 2 blizzards and then sweep, which I guess is not terrible. Raichi probably shouldn't have even let that be a possibility, but like it didn't matter. This was just not a great game. Um,
Yep.
and pretty much right after that, we jumped into TSR versus Mr. Aldo. Carcoals have had really bad ORAS so far. The only win they had was getting kind of lucky versus TSR week 1. TSR, on the other hand, has just continued to be massively unlucky. And unfortunately, this is kind of what continued. I liked our play a lot better. Um, we actually prepped, whereas Aldo, I'm pretty sure, just like reused this team that's pretty fine, but nothing crazy. Mostly relies on like Muck and Stoutland together being a really good core, which they are. Um, but Aldo really messed this game up incredibly bad. Like, really bad. And ended up getting rewarded for it late game. And it's kind of hard to talk about individual moments just because this was a very long game. Very early on, TSR basically trades his Metang for 50% on the Stoutland plus rocks. And Stoutland is kind of Aldo's biggest threat. So this is not bad for Aldo. It can keep doing a lot of pressure. But then he immediately switches Muck into Flare Blitz and then lets Stoutland die kind of soon after without doing very much. And then it basically kind of comes down to Curse Muck versus Dusclops Wars, which are not in Aldo's favor to win, but could have possibly been much better for him. How to even describe this long sequence? Do you want to try? Um,
Um, basically, okay. So we eventually kill Leafeon, which was the biggest thing because.
well, I think
Well,
even
okay.
before that, okay. So TSR gets to like a really dangerous whittled down position with the Dusclops. And
Yeah,
Dusclops can kind of beat Aldo's Muck, but only if it's not knocked off. Which Aldo still has a Leafeon around. This is going to be hard to have it not get knocked off. And the only way TSR wins is if he perfectly calls out Aldo switching into Leafeon and hitting it with Seismic Toss and killing it. Because if Aldo stayed in with Muck and had poison jabbed, TSR would have lost. Fortunately, TSR gets the play perfectly right, and at this point, all Aldo has is a Curse Muck versus TSR's Dusclops and Rotom Frost. At this point, on any individual, like if Muck is at +6 and starts poison jabbing right after TSR rests with Dusclops, Muck has like a 40 something percent chance to just win that between the poison jab rolls and between TSR not sleep talking a Will-O-Wisp. And this is even before we talk about crit chances. But instead of just like going for that, Aldo tries to PP stall and win a PP war with Dusclops versus Muck. If he had just immediately cursed up and tried to poison jab, he would have had enough poison jab PP to where Muck winning was definitely in his favor by like solid odds. But instead, by trying to do a whole PP war and getting PP stalled out, he waits until he has very few poison jabs left, and it's not in his favor at all to win this. And it's only at that point that he finally goes, oh shit, I better try to just kill the Dusclops because I clearly can't win this PP war. And then he immediately double crits it and wins.
Yeah.
And this was just fucking rough. This is now 2 games that's like, no, there's no way Carcoles should have won this at all. It was just very stupid.
This was my biggest fear going into this game with bringing bringing them on like Dusclops, because TSR has been so unlucky this tour. It's kind of impressive in a way.
Yeah.
And the longer games go, the more chances stuff like this has to happen. And I don't know. I had said let's just bring some fast offense stuff, which we have some of that with like Monferno, Rotom. But once we get into these like long games where we have to defensively not get crit and stuff like that, I mean TSR is just crit bait. So
Yeah, and the reason I justified this is because, like most of his Oras builds, this Aldo team is a particular kind of Oras style where most of your mons don't really have recovery and kind of die quickly. It's like balance, but not with much longevity, which is something Aldo has done a ton of. You also see this on Blue YM a lot. Like the sort of newer, I don't know, lesser known, lesser proved Oras players do this a lot. And looking back at a lot of my builds, a lot of my builds end up like this too. I think it's a bit of a trap. I think it's not good. And if you bring something like Dusclops and kind of just outlast and outdamage them, they tend to die off kind of fast, which was why I was pretty okay with this team. The problem was, yeah, our Dusclops set did not like always reliably beat Curse Muck. And that was the one thing Aldo had that like had any kind of longevity, and that was the one thing that he needed to just kind of crit through stuff. Um, yeah, you can't call this a great win, but like, what are you gonna do? I also realized I fucked up. So the Raichi game I said happened right after Termi. Actually, what happened is after Termi, there was a bit of a break. Then there was Lilbur versus Evagero, which we totally skipped. And then immediately after that, Raichi played, and then TSR played. So much for chronological order.
we can try stuff.
Yeah, we can go back. So we had Lilbur versus Evagero, which I totally skipped in Black White. And this game is just very annoying. The biggest feature here is that we're having a fun little back and forth match. Evagero got a really good play in with a very offensive Torterra. It did 79 to a good bite. It's probably choice band, but I'm not going to calc. Had a good pull off, had like some pretty good plays, gets their muck in, but like our team still has a reasonable chance to win here. And then Evagero reveals that this muck is actually a sub punch muck with enough bulk to live for its sub to take our Scraggy's crunch. And Lilbur tries bulking up on the muck once so that at the very least we can break its sub. And after that happens, we have pretty decent chances. We've got offensive sub Mantine plus Scarf Simipour, and Evagero has 0 water resists. All she's got is Spadef Clang. So this is a game that can very feasibly come down to Simipour hitting some Hydro Pumps, even potentially trying to get itself into Torrent range. trying to do something there. Unfortunately, Evgaro immediately crits the focus punch, and what could have been like a compelling back and forth game was just immediate loss, no questions asked. Um, oops.
Yeah, she was. I think she was still favored, like just trying to be fair here. But
Yeah,
holy shit, was it not? Was that sub important to pop?
yeah. I'm not gonna say Evgaro was not favored. Evgaro's
Yeah,
also clearly been the best black white player this tour. And
yeah,
this is nowhere near like the other two games that the Carkles just completely stole. But that sucked. And with that, plus the next two games going back down to TSR, we're down 4-1, which I'm sorry, 4-2. We had Bugsy and Raichi winning, which like we clearly should not be. We should be up 4-2, pretty solidly, and we've just kind of been getting dicked around. And this is where I get to me. Like a couple hours after this happens, I've just been online all day watching all these PPL games, trying to sort out the fucking Claydol to Dens drama, and that's like just the slightest justification of my mental state because I go in to play Kepi and I just play like the worst fucking game of my life and get destroyed by a team that I had a pretty reasonable matchup against in like 25 turns in a way where like it should never have won like this. This was just fucking awful by me. There's no justification. I just completely died in like the dumbest way possible. Um,
yeah.
it was just horrendously played. I had a lot of good outs versus Kepi. I had a sub nasty plot Gorgeist, which could have done a lot of work versus his team, but I didn't even think about scouting Encore on their Kadabra, which like is a Encore Kadabra is something I've been playing with for 3 generations now. That should have been immediately, hey, maybe don't immediately nasty plot on the U-turn type null. Just Giga Train first. Um, and then after like that was honestly the biggest stupid play, but I let my type null get knocked very early when I didn't have to, and then I just like I play around this Kadabra just horrendously in ways that like I never should have and never needed to, and I just kind of died. I don't think Kebi made any major mistakes or anything. I don't think they did anything crazy either. um I just played this like a complete idiot, and there was no time for them to do anything. I just killed myself. It was just so it was a really bad game. There's no justification for that. Um, I won't say it's the worst game played in this series because we had Aldo and Bag of Tricks, but it was real stupid.
Yeah. I wish more of our losses in the tour came down to stuff like this, where I can say, yeah, MZ, you didn't play a great game of Pokemon, but
No, that's the thing. This fucking
yeah,
sucked, and it was real stupid. On the other hand, that was our loss to the Carkles 5-2. Clearly should not have happened. At best, that should have put us to like 4-3. We're still winning, and we've got Rob Jr.
yeah,
LST to
we have
go.
Rob. So
Yeah, like this sucks because I love the Carkles. I love like all the people on this team pretty much. Is there anyone I don't like on this team? I don't know. No one in their starting lineup. I'm just saying pretty much because I don't know who their subs are. Um, there are a lot of people on the Carkles I want to say do well, but unfortunately for them, like there's no way to look at this series and go the better team won. I don't want to say necessarily the worst team won. They certainly could have pulled this back to a tie at least. I don't think they did terrible in the games that they lost either for the most part, with the exception of like Trix and Aldo really messed up, but those weren't necessarily games they needed. But what you can't say is like no, they were clearly the better team here because that just was not the case. Um, and I look forward to seeing them in playoffs. I did predictions where I give them like a tiny like 5% advantage to win finals, but uh, yeah, this was not much from them. This was just I kind of hate ending it on a game like Kepi though, because it was the one game where we convincingly like, no, I just fucked up.
You can end it
Well,
on
oh
my
no, okay.
stupid.
There was GA versus Brufasa, so there were like two games where Brufasa and I just played like ass, and then there were two
Yeah,
games where Aldo and Trix just played like ass. The difference was that Aldo actually got to win anyway, and then we also had Star versus Termy just get robbed.
yeah.
And
I would have been happy going with Rob 4-3 down. Like I have so much faith in that guy, but it just never happened.
yeah, and then we
Could
get
end the series on my stupid Clefairy game.
yeah after everything was done, Specs and LST played for fun, and LST just brought a funny team since they'd already won with the Z Celebrate Glaceon, and you just swept with the Calm Mind
I
Clefairy.
6 0 with Clef. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think it was worth mentioning, but sure.
I know.
Um,
I just thought it was funny, but we'll move on.
yeah, so Claydol's Dedens is mm,
A series.
it's yet another series where there were some individual interesting games, but overall, there's no way to look at this and go, yeah, this team won because they were convincingly better. Which is kind of disappointing overall. This playoffs was just not. There were some fun games. Bugsnader, Fella Burns stood out. There's going to be a couple from the Claydolls Dedens, but overall, um, the way I put it is the Dedens went into this week like last week where they had already clinched playoffs and just didn't care and had two dead games. The prep was not there at all. The play was mostly reasonable, but just absolutely tanked by the lack of decent prep here. And like they deserved to get 6 0'd. That's
Yeah.
that's all there is to it. I can't give the Clay Dolls any props because they were playing a non-opponent pretty much. Um, with one decent exception, really. They did not face any significant challenge. And I think part of that is like Kajad's been super busy. He's taken like another week leave of absence at least. He's had playoffs, and I'm like he hasn't been able to focus on playoffs because he's had exams and stuff. I don't know how much that really hit them, but they did not really pull up with much of anything here.
Well, and this is the big thing when you draft teams, like you do with the Dedens, where you need that backbone of the HDAD passing builds or literally anybody else just giving some insight, and that wasn't there, and it completely showed. And
It's worked when they've tried, and if they
yeah,
tried, I still think they would have. If they tried, I still think they would absolutely be the better team and beat the Clay Dolls. I don't think the Clay Dolls looked bad in this series, but I don't think anything they had was really impressive. Just it was only impressive compared to this team that they were facing. Dedens also did beat the Clay Dolls week one, so there's that, I guess. Although the Clay Dolls improved significantly after that week. But yeah, they pretty much ran into a bunch of non-opponents. So first game was Skipcan versus Finchnader. Finch brought a team I really don't like in any way, shape, or form, and said that he accidentally sacked the wrong Pokemon because he was playing on mobile to lose like much faster very early. But fuck, I don't like his team at all. What the shit was this? It was like a team trying to do Rotom plus Z-Raynance Swanna plus Zangoose as like a way to abuse the fat Spadef mons like the eel and the lantern and stuff that pressures the Rotom and the Swanna. Um, but this team's just so weird and doesn't have much longevity and does not want to face a lot of like any strong mons, and I don't know. I
well,
wasn't any kind of fan of its breaking chances.
it doesn't fit any like any strengths Finch has as a player. Like you see him in Gen 8 OU, and like his longevity game is amazing. He can pull out wins with like I don't know throughout like 20 turns when you think he's gonna lose. That team doesn't do that, so I don't know. It doesn't help that he sacked the wrong mon and is playing on mobile, but I wouldn't have loaded Finch up with that team.
No. Yeah, and this is kind of just the story of the whole week. Skip Can's not bad. I thought their team was interesting, not amazing, but like seemed fine, I guess. But put up against pretty much no pressure, yeah, he's just gonna take that win. TJ versus Sky Solo, pretty fucking similar. Sky Solo had an incredibly bad Kling Kling matchup, like really just unplayable here. And this game only came mildly close because TJ set up with Kling Kling, then missed a pretty big shift gear, and TJ still won pretty convincingly. Like fuck, man, what are you doing? I don't know. The
Yeah.
the Dedens have been very good, but pretty bad in SS, and this week especially, their SS did not manage much of anything. Like this team from Sky Solo was just bad.
Well, when your builder doesn't like the meta or the gen as a whole, it'll show. And
I'm sure they could have
all
found
TJ needed,
someone
all
to
TJ
be
needed
doing
was
any kind of better building. Like, even if the
yeah,
Jad hasn't drafted any big builders, pick someone up, please. Because yeah, that did not go well at all. And that's not even
yeah.
the worst game, dude. Because then we have Alice versus Brandon. There's a whole activity situation. I don't. This was a big drama. I don't want to say much about it except for like both teams were pretty awful here and acted like complete asshats. And just don't, guys. Just stop. This was really silly. At least one team admitted they were being dicks about it. Uh, yeah, this was not fun. What happened was we double subbed Metal Gross and Drud, who have been two better DPP players, for Alice and Brandon, neither of whom really play much DPP. And Alice kind of just got loaded up with a random team that auto lost to Subcombine Mischievous completely for free. So Brandon just won immediately off that.
Yep. I don't have anything to say on this
Yeah,
other than people are childish.
yeah. This was dumb. This was not a team Alice should have brought. Like they don't play DP. They're just getting subbed into this meta. Like we
Well, she does have some sort of experience.
some small experience.
This just like you can't bring this nowadays. You can't bring that team nowadays. It loses to Missy. Missy is a top 3 mon.
Yeah, I mean, Subcombine Mischievous is a relatively new innovation. So if you're gonna grab like a random old team and lose to a relatively new innovation, like it's understandable. I get it, but that doesn't work.
It just doesn't. So
Yeah, and I don't know. On an even playing field, I feel like this could have been pretty reasonable for Alice. Like I've seen almost nothing from Brandon, but I've never seen like any game of theirs where I've been like, that's an impressive team where they really played that well. The only time I really remember, the only game I really remember for them is the PUPL game we played week 7 where he didn't play well and lost. So I might have favored Alice if this game had gone like any length of time without just a random threat immediately 6-0ing. But
yeah, I was talking to people and they were questioning why Brandon was subbed in over Alkion, which is like really fair. But then this happened, so
I assume Alkion just probably wasn't active, but maybe
Yeah,
Brandon was like, put me in, coach, I can do it. And he got the win. I can't say he played bad. I just can't say he played good. He just hit the 6-0 mon button, so.
yeah, it's just nothing to go off of, really. I mean, he did it, so whatever.
Yeah. We move on. So they're down. The Dens are down 0-3 already, and we move on to Soul Gazer versus Yandod. And this is pretty interesting. They're down 0-3, but they can absolutely take this back because the games they've got left. Teddy versus Lighthouses. Teddy has a fair shot at that. Lighthouses, if anyone, like could definitely beat Teddy, but Teddy's good at ORAS. You got Black White TKO versus Lambovino, strongly favor TKO. You've got Hajad versus Procopius and SS. Hajad hates SS, but he's still a much better player. And you've got Osh versus Katut, which is not like Osh is still pretty good. He could definitely take that. And you've got Soulgazer versus Yandod. So like these are all games that are definitely doable for the Dedens, and they can still kind of pull back a tie. And that's kind of where we're at going to. I'm pretty sure this is the first Sunday game that they played. Soulgazer. Oh no, the DPP game was the first Sunday game, so they lost that early. But then it was like a little bit before Soulgazer Yandod played, and it's still like okay, Dedens can definitely pull this back if they don't keep sucking. But this was not a good game from Soulgazer.
Yeah.
I didn't hate the team,
Eh.
but they got pretty much everything wrong very fast, most notably just sacking Kangaskhan, switching it directly into a primate close combat extremely early, which is going to kind of happen when the biggest problem with your team is that your only fighting resist is a Masharna, which you do not want to switch into Ape U-turn while rocks are up. Like that's a big problem. And that can kind of work if you've got a Servine to keep switching into Mudsdale and keep rocks off, but Servine got used very early, to do some breaking on Yandod's Silvally Dragon, which was not a big threat, and it got toxic and weakened, and that couldn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. There was really nothing from Soulgazer here. In the past, have been like, yeah, Yandod played really impressively. This was just he hit buttons and won.
Yeah, I'll say I don't like Soulgazer's team that much. It has aspects that I like. Like Servine is really cool. Crab always gets a kill somewhere. Offensive Musharna is cool, but like all together, like I don't know how you throw on Kangaskhan, Regirock, Crab, and then an offensive Musharna as your ape resist.
It's really weird. I can get where it works offensively. I really think if you give it to someone like Soulgazer and they just keep outplaying their opponent, there's a lot of upsides to this. But you got to actually outplay your opponent, and that, like, you know, Soulgazer's been pretty good. This was not one of those times. This was just a complete washout to put the Dedens back 0-4 versus the Claydolls.
Yeah. They also have no motivation going into this game, so. Or momentum, I should say.
Yeah. Osh versus Gatut, the final game, the Claydolls needed to win. This was probably the best showing that the Dedens had. It was not terrible from Osh. Their team was not awful, but it was kind of just meh. It didn't have a lot of convincing threats versus Gatut's team. And I think it only came kind of close because Katut's team was just a little bit jank and if that makes sense. Like I wasn't a huge fan of Katut's team, but shit mostly ended up working because Osh's team wasn't great either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say on this game.
No.
Really. But the end game could have been cool. It was a lot of set dependent stuff, but
yeah, but
like,
Katut
almost
ended up having a pup ice punch Dustnor in the back, which cleaned up like very convincingly. So that didn't end up happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Katut played this fine. Osh didn't, I think, make any massive misplays. He just kind of didn't have a lot to do. And yeah, like I said, I think it only came closer because I just wasn't a huge fan of Katut's team. It's just a little bit. It's kind of like Jank without the spice. I guess like the craziest, biggest like whack thing he could have pulled out was the Eviolite bulk up reboot, which I think has like a lot of potential in this meta, and it was certainly good in this matchup. But I don't know, it wasn't as strong, and Katut mostly got by on us just not having much to do in this matchup.
Yeah, I will say the hyper voice bolt on is something, but I don't know exactly what it does. But
It lures Sandslash, and it did do a lot of damage to
oh
Sandslash.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like, I guess you want to get it out of the way when you've got Pawniard, Dust Noir, and Reboot. So
and
like
reboot.
that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, but what if that doesn't work out? Because that's still like not the most reliable strategy I can think of. And Katat also has like no ground resists on this team, so I think it's very much reliant on doing that lure shit. Because otherwise,
Opposing Sand Slash, like unless you're gonna like
opposing
get
Alolan
the hype.
Dugtrio too seemed like a real
Yeah,
pain. It was probably also Firefang Bolton, to be fair, but like I don't know, the lack of any kind of ground resist or fire resist except for your Violate Reboot, I thought was pretty whack. And yeah, like my overriding impression is just mostly Osh's breaking was like eject pack Appleton into Silvally Ice, which just was not anything Katut was weak to. But there are a lot of different things I could have imagined Osh bringing that might have done a lot better. It's just this team was not ideal. And they both look like very old teams. There's no drop stuff. Katut's team looks very similar to a Telenet team he brought like 2 weeks ago. Osh's team looks like it could be from 3 metas ago. I don't know.
yeah.
And that's
Just
how the Dedens got 5-0, just putting up like no no real competition here. They also played a single game after the series was already decided, where TKO, whose team had already lost, decided to just bring something fun rather than what he would have normally brought and lost to Lambovino. There was nothing that interesting about this game except when Gotharita did 31 to a throw with Psychic, so and couldn't trap it. That was pretty funny. Um, but aside from that, like this was a pretty nothing game, and yeah, that's how playoffs kind of went. Oh boy, was that
yeah.
something?
I
So
really hope finals go better than this because Jesus.
yeah, I mean, I definitely thought Karkul's Meowstic was a much better series. It just kind of got hit up early due to hacks, whereas like the Dedens, bro, I don't know what happened, and I haven't wanted to ask Kajat. He's been busy with files and stuff. I don't want to grill him like, dude, what was your team doing? But something happened. They just fell apart. Um, and gave the Claydolls just a free pass to finals. So finals, we're gonna have Claydolls versus Karkuls. I actually wrote up some more in-depth predictions for this, which I normally just do predictions on Untier Talk, but I'd like to avoid predictions until like playoffs or finals because I feel like at that point there's a lot to draw on. Whereas if you're doing them for early weeks, is not much. But this was actually kind of hard because neither of these teams are coming off good momentum. Neither of them have like that impressive play in the past week to look at. So it really kind of just ended up being like more looking at aggregate records and stuff. There's definitely some fun games here. All three SS could be pretty fun. Star Katut, Felburn, TJ. Kepi Procopius less so because Procopius still has not had like an impressive breakout game yet at all, but he definitely could, and that could make this pretty fun. LST versus Yandod, I like, and General Annoyance versus Drud is the two best DPP records. So like, there's a lot to look forward to here. I just hope we get a much better series.
Yeah, I think I have a small edge to Clay Dolls. Um, I think their SS is just a bit better than the Carkles. I mean, these are the two best SS teams. But I think that Clay Dolls have been slightly more impressive there. But it's still like basically a 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Interestingly enough, they're actually not the two best SS
are they
teams.
not?
So after playoffs week, Karkles and Meowsticks are actually tied for the second best SS with
Oh,
no, hang on. Meowsticks would be 14 and 11. They're both 14 and 11. And keep in mind that's only with that Star Termi game getting like absolutely stolen. So Meowsticks are second best SS. Let's go Meowsticks. Um
Yeah, I guess it just didn't feel like it.
But they're the third. But they're the third best SS. So there's that.
Yeah,
Clay Dolls have had a much better SS. Before playoffs, they're 16-6. I don't want to say that they're 18-6 now because holy fuck, they got no competition at all. But nope, they're 18-6 in SS. Best record by a solid bit. But yeah, Carcoals are not second best SS.
okay.
Yeah, in my predictions, I definitely said like this is kind of weird because there's some games I strongly favor Clay Dolls in 3 games and Carcoals in 3 games, and then 2 of them are toss ups. Like I think on the Carcoals side, Kepi versus Procopius, um, Evagero versus Lambovino, and General Annoyance versus Drud. I give pretty like solid winning odds to Carcoals, but on Clay Doll's side, TJ Felburn, Skip Can Bag of Tricks, and Lighthouse's Aldo. Um, I give strong favored Clay Dolls. And then I kind of just didn't really know what to say on Star Katut and LST Yandod. Those are going to be the games to watch, in my opinion. That's not to say upsets are impossible, but that's kind of where my mind comes down on these matchups.
Yeah. Do you have a team you're rooting for?
Hmm. I'll probably pull for Cargols just because after that, after yesterday, I'm very ill inclined to pull for Claydolls, and just after
Mm-hmm.
the dumb activity drama, it's just hard to root for the team. Um,
Fair enough.
yeah, I definitely felt that like winner of Meowsticks Carcoals would have been my preferred winner, so I'll pull for them. I think Evagero like pulling her PUPL team to a victory with the best black white record is a very cool narrative. Um, More so than like TJ and Katut with the top 2 SS records pulling their team to victory, just because like the black white champion and that being a big deal. I think that's just funny. Maybe it's just me. It's just like black white's kind of the dumb odd one out meta. So pulling your team to victory with black white just seems funny to me. I don't know.
Yeah, as a non-black white guy, I don't get it too much, but I can see where that's like a cool little side thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just want a good series overall. I don't really care who wins too much. But
That would be pretty nice.
yeah,
A good
just a good.
series. Speaking of having bad series, let's do this retrospectives on the teams that went out because that's what I've been doing. That's what we did last week anyway. So, Didens started out as the number 1 ranked team, and frankly, I still think if the Dens tried, they're just better than the Clay Dolls, but really fell apart in the last couple of weeks, um, and were mostly let down by having a very bad SS. The Dens, despite being still overall like the best looking team, second worst SS. Um, 8-13. That's before
Crazy.
playoffs. So now they're 8-15, which is only better than the Clang's 6-13. Uh, Even worse than the Auxiliaries, our last place team. Uh, that's a yikes.
A bad thing.
Yeah, mostly carried by their old gens. Before playoffs, their SM was 12-3. Now back down to 12-5. Um, their Oras was also pretty good at a 3-3, which is like not major, but Oras you mostly want to go even. That's that's about it. Um, their black white did not really pull off. It was 3-4 before playoffs. Now it's 3-5. Um, and then the DPP, which went 4-2 by just throwing in Tor players with Tor sets, and 4-3 now after that disastrous Alice game. And in hindsight, all I can say is like these records didn't pull off that crazy. They mostly just got like the individual wins they needed each week rather than really dominating. And I still like again, I still really do think they're a stronger team. Um, but when it came to playoffs, instead of doing what they did last year and just showing up even harder, they just fell apart.
Yeah, I had said that the Dens were the best team in the power rankings as well, but I remember saying the gap between the teams, between like the top three, top four, is much smaller than it was last PPL, right? So
For sure.
uh, this is kind of what can happen. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
nobody can predict like Dens just losing all momentum in playoffs, but like this was definitely more likely to happen than it would have like last year, where there was just
Eh,
no chance for the other
I
teams.
don't agree. If last year they'd
Okay,
fallen apart like this, I think they would have lost. I don't think this was a gap thing. The Clay Dolls like
okay,
are definitely closer to the Dedens than they would have been in a past year. But this wasn't a gap thing. This wasn't like, oh, Clay Dolls were good enough to take a close series. This was just did the Dedens died. Uh yeah.
fair enough.
Meow
Um,
Sticks, we get to do the analysis on our own failed team. Um, Meow Sticks were pretty interesting because this was really just a frustrating PUPL. We had normally it'd be like, holy shit, you guys are just exaggerating how bad things are going. The bad luck this PUPL was just monumental, and just my god, uh, not fun to deal with overall. And I'm really happy that we were able to pull off what we did. Give me one sec. Or okay, we're gonna have to speed through this kind of quickly. Um,
okay.
Ended up with an SS at 14 and 11, and that's like with with the bad shit that we had. I'm pretty happy with. Bugsinator really did quite well, and then Termy and I picked up wins where we could. Um, I was happy with that. We also had a pretty strong SM with Raichi and Rob Jr. Again, like none of our records were that crazy. Raichi and Rob Jr. were like 5-3 and 3-2, but mostly it was a lot about like the Dens getting the wins where we could, just like snagging them where it counted because we didn't have any crazy records, but we kept getting like if we won, it was 5-3. Um, Oras TSR got hacked like every week and went 1-7, and he should have been like 5-2. It was fucking disgraceful. Black White was also the biggest thing we pulled out. We went 5-2 with me and Lilbur, which should never have fucking happened. Good lord. That's not a Black White core. We just ended up pulling it out. Uh, very happy with that. And DBP also didn't really pull it out. Brufasa had some nasty losses, a little bit of bad luck there too. So I don't really think 3-5 is super representative, but yeah, this was a really fun team to be on. I enjoyed the time. I put in like a lot of work, and so much of it just got stolen instead of paying off. But this was a really fun experience.
Yeah, we had cool people on the team too, so it wasn't just we got lots. You know, didn't know a lot of people on the team. Like the tour was fun at least, and it's been nice to watch, but
Yeah,
it could have been a lot better.
for
You know,
sure.
on paper, it could have been a lot better.
All right, really quick. Is there anything you want to drop for a gimmick corner? I know there's no Jad, and we got like 2 minutes to end this, but
Now, sure, offensive rocks Wigglytuff is kind of a thing, but I've been messing around with Expert Belt with Ice Beam. It really helps against rockers like Sandslash.
cool.
Um,
Yeah,
after rocks, it's like a
Fat
62.
Wigglytuff sucks. So anything that's
Oh yeah,
not Fat Wigglytuff, all right.
yeah. So
I'll throw in real quick for offensive sub nasty plot. Gorgeist, the normal form. You need no investment for its subs to easily take Stunfisk stabs and type null's U-turn. So it sets up on a lot of shit. And like most of the time people want to go hard into either a Tangela or an itemless grass or your type null or something. So this Gorgeist can do an awful lot of work. I saw False just like lead and kind of 6-0 someone off just a funny Gorgeist matchup. It can do a lot of work and be a good surprise. And if I hadn't played like an idiot, it probably would have pulled out pretty good versus Kepi. Flareon dropping sucks because it was way better before that. Like my god, this mon can match up some games. It's less broken than physical poltergeist stuff, but it abuses the mons that people will use to beat that stuff, which is what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
That's all I got. Thanks for showing up. And next week we'll be back for finals and with the Jad, and probably get a Kier for the final one. We try to get the host, so we'll see if we can do that. Thank you for coming on to be the replacement host, Specs.
No worries. Hope
Yeah.
I did okay.
Yeah. This was just a silly week to have to talk about.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.